You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. Today is January 11th, 2026. This is episode 334 of Lighthearted. My co-host is Sarah McHugh, Associate Director of Events and Visits at UMass Boston, and also the host of a new podcast that we're going to talk about in a minute. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jeremy. I'm very glad to be back on the podcast to chat about what we have going on today and then also talk about the new podcast as well.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So in a few minutes, we're going to listen to a conversation about Fairport Harbor Light on Lake Erie in Ohio, someplace I visited this past September. Before we get to the interview, I do want to talk about the new podcast you're hosting. It's really exciting. I just listened to the first episode, just finished it today, and I'm so excited about this. Can you please tell us the name of the podcast and what it's all about?
Sure. So the name of the podcast is Be the Light. So what our tagline is shining a light on those who illuminate their communities. So it's a little bit of a spinoff off Lighthearted and all the great work that the US LHS is doing. What we're doing is interviewing people in their communities that are doing really great work, everyday heroes making an impact in meaningful ways, and interviewing them about their personal stories, practical advice, and candid conversations. We're just trying to inspire listeners to discover their own light and consider how they can contribute to making the world a brighter place. So really just taking the symbolism of the lighthouse, being the light for the people around you, and spreading it and interviewing people that are doing that in their communities. So hopefully pretty inspiring, hopefully just making the world a better place a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I second that. That's for sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of your guests will be related to lighthouses in some ways, including your first guest in the first episode. But these will not necessarily be people that have anything to do with lighthouses. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the idea is that anybody can be a lighthouse, whether you're directly related to lighthouses in your work and volunteerism and support, or whether you're not at all. It's just really connecting the symbolism of being a light, being a beacon, shining out for others, and guiding others in a way. So really anyone who is doing that, anyone who's interested in that, anyone who wants to become more like that, this is the podcast for you.
You know, I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. I don't think there's any more pervasive symbol in our culture than lighthouses. Symbolizing all those good things. And, you know, lighthouses were built for no other reason but to help people, to save lives and property. It's perfect, I think. So can you tell me who's your guest in the first episode?
So Avery Shaughnessy Comfort is our first guest of the episode from the Presque Isle Lighthouses. So she talks a lot about not just lighthouse preservation and lighthouse related things, but more about how through her lighthouse experience and the nonprofit that she's running, she's been able to create events not related to the lighthouse, but for the community, and seen the barriers in the community that support the lighthouse there, and finding a way to have events, have fundraisers that give back directly to that community.
Yeah.
So a really cool full circle kind of idea that goes on in there. So
yeah, I know she also likes to involve the volunteers in those efforts as well. Yeah. So regular listeners to the podcast will remember Avery. She's co-hosted a few times. She's been on in several episodes. I think she was the perfect first guest for you. And again, the conversation you had was inspiring. So again, people can listen to that as we speak. We're speaking on the 7th, and I know that episode is about to be posted. So people will be able to find it on the US LHS news blog and wherever they listen to their podcasts. But we'll mention that again later. So now I want to get to today's interview. The subject is Fairport Harbor Lighthouse in Ohio on Lake Erie, not that far from Erie, Pennsylvania, where Avery is. Sarah, please help me introduce the conversation.
Sure, Jeremy. Fairport Harbor is on the south side of Lake Erie at the mouth of the Grand River. It's considered part of the Cleveland metropolitan area. The first lighthouse in the harbor was a 56-foot brick tower built in 1825. The lighthouse that stands today is a 60-foot stone tower that began service in 1871.
A new lighthouse was built on a breakwater in the harbor in 1925. The budget for the new lighthouse included funds for the demolition of the 1871 tower. A number of organizations in the area objected, and the lighthouse was spared. In 1945, the Fairport Harbor Historical Society established a marine museum inside the old keeper's house. The museum features exhibits about the history of the lighthouse and its keepers, a third-order Fresnel lens, ship models, and maritime artifacts, and lots more. The former pilot house from the Great Lakes carrier, the Frontenac, is attached to the museum's building.
Our guests today are Marty O'Gara and John Ollila. John is a historian for the Lighthouse and a trustee of the Fairport Harbor Historical Society. Marty is the president of the Fairport Harbor Historical Society.
Let me just ask you before we continue, do you know about the famous cat story of Fairport Harbor Lighthouse?
I think that we talked about this briefly in the last podcast that I co-hosted.
Oh, okay.
Because it was around Halloween time.
Oh, right. Okay. So you have an inkling about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spoil it for listeners here, but it's quite a story. It was quite a shock when I saw this famous cat, but I'll stop there for now. But we'll get into it in the interview. So I visited Fairport Harbor during that trip I did along Lake Erie in September. So let's listen to my conversation about Fairport Harbor Lighthouse with Marty and John now. I am speaking today with Marty O'Gara and John Ollila. Marty is the president of the Fairport Harbor Historical Society, and both of you correct me if I get any of this wrong. And John, you are historian and also a board member or trustee of the organization. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so I passed my first test here, and we were just chatting a little bit before we started this, and there's been a huge storm going across the country, and here in where I am on the New Hampshire seacoast, we got freezing rain and ice overnight, but it's now just rain. But it's pretty stormy, and I think are you still experiencing some of a storm there as well?
Yeah, it's blowing pretty hard outside, and we were very fortunate because the mayor came by, was it yesterday, Marty?
Yesterday.
And he took down all our Christmas decorations off the tower. So we're glad that he did.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't, they'd be coming down now anyhow.
Yeah, you were saying you got like 40, 50 mile an hour winds out there right now. There must be some interesting other big waves on the lake, on Lake Erie.
I'll have to take a peek out the window, but usually there is, because the wind is kind of coming from the northwest. That's our prevailing winds here, and the way that they're coming through on this storm too. So there's some pretty big waves out there, and they're crashing over the breakwater.
Yeah, and you said the foam pole came down near there?
Yeah, when I was driving up here, I saw some red lights, and as I went by, the pole had just fallen down. It fell towards some houses. It didn't fall across the road, so I got by okay, but I'm going to take a different route out of town.
Yeah. So let me just start, before we get into talking more about the Lighthouse Museum, if you could both maybe tell me a little bit, like the Cliff's Notes version of what led you to get involved with the Fairport Harbor Historical Society and the Lighthouse Museum.
Basically, I've been connected to Fairport somehow for a long time. My grandparents came from Finland in the late 1800s. When I was born, this is where we lived, and I didn't live here all my life, but I had quite a few relatives in the in the town, and we still went to church here in Fairport. And later on, as I grew up, I got involved in sailboat racing. And so I did a lot of sailing around the Great Lakes, both racing my own sailboat and sailing with a tall ship called the Madeline out of Traverse City, which the original Madeline was built in Fairport Harbor. So my connection to the Great Lakes and to Fairport, the natural place to be is the Lighthouse. That's the connection between it all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sounds like a perfect place to be.
That's kind of how I got here.
Yeah. How about you, Marty?
Well, I'm a newcomer. I moved up here in 2016. My husband and I moved up here for retiring. I was looking for volunteer opportunities. So somebody told me actually, it was a neighbor who told me about the lighthouse. So I joined the Historical Society, just started doing some volunteering, working in the gift shop, etc. And eventually I became president.
Yeah, you better watch out. These
It
things will kind of
happens.
grab hold of you and pull you in more and more. But that's great, and it's great that they have you in that position. So, could you clarify something for me? Does the Historical Society own the Lighthouse Museum, or if not, who does?
No, actually, the village owns the property here. We lease it for $1 a year, and we have, a continuing contract with them to do that. So that all happened in the 1940s
Yeah.
and 50s, because when they built the breakwater lighthouse in 1925 is when that lighthouse on the breakwater went into operation. Part of the
Hmm.
money that they had for building that lighthouse was to tear the tower here down. They were still going to keep the building uh, because it was they still needed a place for the keepers to stay and so forth. However, they're
Yeah.
going to tear it down. The town got together and decided they weren't going to let that happen, and they were successful, and that
Yeah.
eventually led to the formation of the Fairport Harbor Historical Society,
So the museum opened in 1945.
1945.
I've seen it said that it's the oldest lighthouse museum on the Great Lakes. Do you think that's accurate?
That's pretty accurate. It's the first time that a museum was created on a lighthouse reservation.
Hmm.
Although I mentioned before to you that in Stonington, Connecticut, I think they bought that lighthouse in 1926, is what I think
Sounds about right.
happened. But I don't know that that was a lighthouse that was going to be torn down. So
Yeah. Well, I don't think so. But again, you're on the Great Lakes, so I would say this is the oldest lighthouse museum on the Great Lakes. I know the Stonington
absolutely,
Museum
for the
very
Great
well.
Lakes, it's the oldest museum on the Great Lakes.
You mentioned the Fairport Harbor West Breakwater Light went into operation in 1925.
Right.
Does your organization have any connection to that at all?
Well, the lighthouse is owned now by a lady named Sheila Council,
Mhm.
who got the lighthouse in an auction, and she does some things in connection with us. So we have things that we do together, and sometimes we have tours in both places. So
Hmm.
we're pretty well connected with her. So
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've corresponded a bit with her, and I hope maybe I can get her on the podcast sometime.
yeah, yeah,
So,
she's good for a podcast. She
uh-huh.
has some good stories.
Good. So that lighthouse, the West Breakwater Light, was 100 years old this
Right.
past year, 2025.
Yeah.
And the original Fairport Harbor Light was built in 1825. So it was the 200th anniversary of that.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
imagine there were some celebrations or events related to that.
There were, we had a gala in June, June 21st, very well attended. We had entertainment. We had some of our members dressed up as some of the historical characters from our history, food, we had music, and we had a perfect evening. It was started at 7 o'clock, and the wind died down, the humidity lifted, and we had a really nice evening. Good response. I think we had about 140 people.
That's great. So it was a good year. You mentioned people dressed as historical personalities there. So again, the first lighthouse there established 1825, and the ones there now built in 1871.
Mhm.
And many keepers and families lived there over the years. I'm wondering if there's any particularly interesting stories about the keepers and families there, or just anything general you'd like to say about life there at that lighthouse.
Well, the one that's probably gained the most notoriety are the Babcocks.
Babcock was the lighthouse keeper. His brother was the captain of the life saving station, Frank
Ah,
Babcock. And so
mm-hmm,
the Babcocks have been involved in a lot of different things here.
The
And
family.
then his son took over as the lighthouse keeper after he retired. And
yeah.
there have been on and off different keepers in here. But Joseph Babcock, during the period from 1871 until 1925, he or his family was somehow involved in the lighthouse as lighthouse keeper or assistant. Things
Mm-hmm.
kind of changed around. So,
But there was always at least one principal keeper and his family living there. Is that correct? Yeah.
yeah, That's pretty much. The Babcocks had another house in town, so
Mm-hmm.
when George Riker and some of the other people were keepers, and he was the assistant keeper, they lived in their house. I don't know exactly who lived in what what location every single year, but
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was always somebody from the Lighthouse service that lived here in this house.
yeah. And there was an assistant keeper all the time, or was that just some of the history?
I'm pretty sure there was always an assistant keeper. And
Mm-hmm.
once they had the lighthouse out on the breakwater, you would have a keeper that was in charge, and then the assistant. You'd be out on the lighthouse for whatever it was, 48 hours, then you'd switch off
Oh, okay.
and so forth. So,
So the two lights were basically under the same team of
right.
keepers. Uh-huh.
In addition, we had a beacon light that was on our east pier that was used as a range light at different times and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. So we've had a total of 5 different structures that were lighthouses in this harbor. We had two towers in the location right here where the museum is. The first one in 1825 and then 1871 for the second tower. Then during that time, we also had a beacon on the East Pier, and the first beacon stayed there until the 1870s, and then they replaced that, I think, 1875 or 1876 with a new beacon light, and
Mm-hmm.
then the one out on the breakwater. So it was a total of 5 different lights actually in this harbor.
Yeah. Okay. That seems to be the case in a lot of harbors on the Great Lakes and along Lake Erie. As changes are made in the harbors over the years. Yeah.
Right.
So the tower, the 1871 tower that stands today, could you just describe it a little bit? How tall is it? And it's a stone tower, correct?
Right. It's Berea sandstone on the outside, bricks on the inside. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it tapers up to the top.
Yeah.
There's a space in between those two walls for air to, keep everything dry and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's 60 feet to the gallery up there where you can walk around.
Yeah.
And the light itself was 102 feet. The focal plane was 102 feet above the surface of the lake. So that
Yeah.
allowed the light to be seen for 17 and a half. I see different numbers all the time, 17 and a half, 18, and so forth. And
Yeah.
what I read once was that on the charts, the distance for the lights was based on being 15 feet above the surface of the of the of the lake,
Yeah.
because that was the average height of a deck at the time they
That's
started
right.
doing that. So.
Yeah. 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 I know it's on a bit of a hill there, as I well remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're on a hill, and that gave us an advantage of being a lot higher. So it's a better place to put the light than right down on the beach.
Yeah, I believe another lighthouse I visited on my trip along Lake Erie in September was the two lighthouses in Erie, the so-called Erie Land Light, which I think
Right.
is pretty much identical to your lighthouse. Is that correct?
Pretty much. They were built right around the same time,
Yeah,
and they were built off of the same plans, as far as I know, to the best
yeah,
of my knowledge. And they had their lantern room, and that whole section on the top of their lighthouse was moved to Marblehead at one time. And for a long time, they had, just a temporary lantern room that somebody built up there. And then in about the year 2000, 2001, around that era, they decided they were going to reconstruct their lantern room. And so they came
yeah.
to our lighthouse to do some measurements and so forth. And so by doing that, they could recreate the actual lantern room that they had. And if you go there, it looks pretty nice.
It does. Yeah, I was like
Very
I
good.
said, I was there and I climbed it with Avery Shaughnessy Comfort, who's the director there and has been
Ah,
a co-host on this podcast a few times.
well, they did a very nice job with
Mm.
with their restoration of that
Hmm.
lantern room. But if
Yeah,
you look at the Marblehead Lighthouse, it looks like just like the inside of our lantern room.
right.
It is.
Yeah, I also visited there. Yeah, well, they're three great lighthouses. That's for sure, and well taken care of. So there was a third order Fresnel lens in your
Right.
lighthouse.
And we got
Uh,
our third order Fresnel lens in 1858 is
hmm.
when it came. So it was actually put in the original lighthouse first, and then it was changed over to the new tower in 1871. There was a temporary light up for a while they were doing that.
Yeah. And where's that lens today? The third order
The
lens?
third order lens is right in our museum.
Yeah.
We're
I
very
knew that.
fortunate to have it. I think one of the reasons that we have it is because it was a fixed light. And so there was, two sections where there was no glass at all. And so in order to use it somewhere else, they would have had something that replicated the same range that we were trying to use and so forth. And they put
Right.
it away and forgot about it.
Yeah.
So fortunately, we were the people who started this museum were on the ball. They found it, and we were able to get it back.
Yeah. Well, also a lot of the lenses before people knew better were just destroyed when they're
That's
removed
what
from
I
the
understand.
lighthouses. So it's lucky that it was saved. It's lucky that, like you said, that those people were forward thinking and realized how valuable it was. Besides the lens, I got to see your museum when I was there, but could you just say a little bit more? I want to get to the famous cat in a moment, so maybe keep that on the back burner for the moment.
Okay.
But what are some of the highlights besides the lens and the cat?
Well, number one, we have the pilot house from the steamer Frontenac, which
Yeah.
was a Cleveland Cliffs vessel built in 1923. So we were able to get that. Fortunately, they put it onto our museum before we were on
Historic.
the list of historic places, and because of that, we were able to do that. If we would have been on the on that list earlier, then we wouldn't have been able to put that on the museum. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dwight Boyer, who was a writer for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, he did the maritime news for the Cleveland Plain Dealer for many years, was a member of our society, and he was instrumental when they decided in the 1960s, to put a different pilot house on the Frontenac to get the old one and bring it up here. It's pretty cool because it came on
is.
a flatbed truck, and everybody in the community was involved in getting it put in place and so forth. So it's pretty neat.
It is, yeah. I saw that, of course, when I was there. That's a great part of your museum there. Do you have, well, first of all, the Lighthouse and Museum are seasonal, right? So you're now closed for the season. Is that correct?
Right. We are.
Is it pretty much like May to October?
We open Memorial Day weekend, and we typically close in September. This year, we closed at the end of September because there's an event called Community Days here in Fairport, and we normally close after Community Days. So they extended their date, and so we closed after Community Days was over.
Yeah.
We did still have some private tours in October because the weather was good. So we went on 3, I think, in October.
Yeah.
But we're closed to the public.
Yeah, yeah. Besides the community event you mentioned, I saw something about Harbor Holidays. I think that happened earlier this month.
Yes,
Is that right?
Harbor Holidays is the first Saturday in December. And it was good this year. The weather was good. The museum was open. We had Santa and Mrs. Claus, and we didn't charge admission. We just had people come through and view the museum, talk to Santa. And then at the end of the day, the Grinch climbs to the top of the tower and reads How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And the intersection is full of families, parents and kids mostly. So they listen to the Grinch. Then the Grinch comes down and they all go to the village square for hot chocolate.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
John, I have to ask, were you Santa and or the Grinch?
No, but they were both volunteers. The Grinch does not belong to us, but he uses our tower.
Oh, okay. So when the museum is open in season, is the tower open for climbing?
It is.
And are there guided tours?
We have guided tours. We have the group contact us and fill out an application so we know when they're coming, how many people to expect, and kind of a flavor of what they might be interested in based on what kind of a group it is. One of our volunteers is in charge of the tours, and John and several other members are docents and conduct the tours.
But when people, just individuals or families, visit, it's basically they tour on their own. Is that right?
They do, but we try and we encourage the volunteers to go along on some of the tours so that they can learn the history. So we try to be sure the volunteers have at least some background information, and they have some resource materials that they can look at if
Yeah.
questions arise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite often in the summer, John or one of the other docents will come through just because, and if they're there, we encourage the guests to talk with them.
One of the things that we have is we have a lot of people from the Latter-day Saints that come through
Hmm.
because this is where Joseph Smith came when the Mormons came from Palmyra to Kirtland. I've been fortunate in order to learn quite a bit about their religion and all the things that happen. So when they come through, we can give them a pretty good tour and tell them the stories of all the people from their church that came through here.
Have there been restoration projects in recent years? I'm sure there's been a lot of projects over the years, but what's some of the recent stuff that's happened there as far as?
Well, the most recent one, John, I think you'll agree, was we had the mast from the USS Michigan needed extensive work. It had damage, and we did have that restored and rededicated this past May at the same time that we were starting to celebrate our 200th anniversary.
Right. In case anybody doesn't know, the U.S. Michigan was the first iron-hulled ship in the U.S. Navy. It was built in Erie, Pennsylvania in 1843. And then when they decided to scrap it in 1950, I believe, 49 or 50, right around that time, the people from our museum, again, were on the ball. And they headed up there, and they got the foremast from the Michigan. There were three masts on that boat, and so they got the foremast and brought it here. And we have it set up as a flagpole. The bottom section is, of course, made out of iron, like the rest of the boat, but the topmast was actually made out of wood.
Wow.
We did several things. A few years back, we replaced the whole topmast, and the Maritime Heritage Alliance up in Traverse City helped us do that. And then we replaced some other parts recently, and now we have it. Hopefully, it'll be good for a while.
If it survives today's wind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've had very high winds there.
Yeah, we have.
Over the years. Of course, it's hard to talk about Fairport Harbor Lighthouse without talking about the famous cat. So people would be very disappointed if we didn't talk about that. To start that out, could you, either of you, tell me a little bit of the background story before we get to where the cat is now? But how did all that start, the story of the cat?
In the early 2001 or 2002, somewhere in that area, we were getting air conditioning put in the building for the first time. And the vents came up from the floor, and we have a basement, but not under all of the museum. So in the section that was under the old kitchen, there's a crawl space, and the workers that were putting it in were moving around. They looked over, and here's this mummified cat. So the guy who was working on it took that very carefully, put it on a model at the bottom of the stairway, and that goes down to the basement. And then for the next week or so, all the volunteers are going down, hey, check out the cat. We found the ghost cat. Huh. And one of our older members, Jack Lasco, told the story of how Pam Brent, who was one of the who was a curator at the time, had told Eleanor Dwyer about the story of seeing this cat. And Eleanor had it in one of her books, as I think the
Lighthouse Menagerie was probably the book. That's one of Eleanor's books, The Lighthouse Menagerie, about animals at lighthouses.
Yeah. Anyhow, she wrote about it, and so Jack wrote up a little thing for our newsletter, and before long, we've got people from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the newspaper in Cleveland. They want to come out and see the ghost cat and learn about it. Then Channel 8 and so forth came out, Fox News, and so everything gets around. Before long, we're getting emails from California. Hey, we heard about your ghost cat, and so it becomes pretty popular. One thing leads to another, and all of a sudden we have the Animal Planet, the Travel Channel, and all these cable shows that are coming out to check out the cat.
Right.
Now we have paranormal groups that will come, and they stay here all night and check things out. And
yeah.
see what they can find.
Are there any ideas about whose cat that was in the first place and how it got in there or anything like that?
Yes. Well, the folklore version is that part of this is true, of course. Mr. and Mrs. Babcock had two children when they were living in the lighthouse, and their younger son, Robbie, died. We're not sure of what, but some childhood disease. And Mrs. Babcock, of course, was very depressed and sad after she lost her child. So Captain Babcock got her a couple of cats to keep her company. And she enjoyed the cats. She died of old age. And the legend is that the day Mrs. Babcock passed, her favorite cat disappeared. So after that, of course, then, as John said, there were stories of people having seen a cat in the lighthouse. Pam Brent, who was a curator here and didn't have any pets, reported seeing this gray cat,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So we're assuming that that could have been Mrs. Babcock's cat. And it's, of course, very popular because the cat was named Sentinel after they discovered her. They had a contest among the school children, and Sentinel was the name they picked. The cat is in the lens room next to the Fresnel lens in a case. And she's a very, very popular attraction.
Yeah. It's funny, when I was there, I had read about the cat before, so I kind of knew a little bit about the story, and I had known the cat was in the museum, but it slipped my mind. I had forgotten about that. So you didn't actually say the cat's in the museum, and we walked into the next room, and I was a little startled. There's the cat.
I just assume everybody knows she's there,
Right. Well, probably everybody in your area certainly is well aware of it. And I know it's been featured in, like you said, paranormal shows and various documentaries and things, TV shows.
And as John said, we still get the groups, and usually their primary reason for coming is to look into the ghost cat. So.
But are there other ghost stories besides the ones about the cat, or things that people have experienced?
I have been told that people have heard someone in the tower saying, "Go away," and they assumed that it was Robbie, the son who died. And we still get occasionally, I have people come through that have stories about the ghost cat. There was one lady whose dad lived down the street, said he used to see a cat in the tower windows. I've had a couple of people who had their children in the pilot house, and the one little girl looked down in the air conditioning vent and said, "Mommy, there's a cat down there." And her mom just kind of, poo-pooed it because the little girl was about 3 years old. But as she learned the story of the ghost cat and everything, she said, well, things like that come up occasionally.
Yeah. Have either of you experienced anything odd?
I did once. We used to have ghost tours here in October, and Dan Maxon, who's in charge of our tours, told ghost stories. So anyway, we were doing one of those. I went outside just to get some air, and there was a full moon, and I saw something go around me, and I turned around and there was nothing there and no place for anything to go. And the hackles on my neck kind of stood up. So I think that was an experience because there were strangers in the lighthouse. There was a full moon. So.
I can remember walking. This was in the evening after the museum was pretty much closed, and one of the other docents and myself were walking through one of the rooms. And in one of the showcases, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of stuff just fell down.
For no reason.
Fortunately, we didn't break anything, seriously, but it just happened. And both of us were going, we looked at each other, but maybe.
Yeah. And it was nothing that you thought would have been like precarious, like ready to fall or anything like that.
I don't know what caused it, but it could have been a ghost.
I did have one time, again, I was alone. I was locking up to leave, and I heard somebody say goodbye in the next room, and there was nobody there. And it was late afternoon. I think we can safely say there are some spirits here.
Yeah. People who listen to the podcast know we've talked about this kind of thing a lot on the podcast, and I have an open mind about these things, and I've had experiences. Our local lighthouse here, Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse, has been featured on the Ghost Hunters TV show and other things, and we have our stories. So I have an extremely open mind about it. And I always there's a woman named Linda Greenlaw, who was a swordfish boat captain, but also has written a number of books. And her grandfather owned a lighthouse in Isle Ho in Maine, and she said, I remember in one of her books she wrote, people say the lighthouse is haunted, but I like to think it's spirited, which is a nice way to put it. Whether you believe it literally or not, certainly the spirits of the past, the keepers, and those people are with us one way or another, for sure. So there's another community event I wanted to ask you about that I was just reading about, the Fairport Harbor Mardi Gras. What's that all about?
It was a community-wide celebration. It started in the 30s.
Yeah, late 30s. It started as like a street fair in one of the streets where everybody was getting together, and then it expanded, and pretty soon it was a Mardi Gras, and then they had a big parade for years, and all the schools in the area would have their bands there, and they had a contest for the Mardi Gras Queen and all that kind of stuff. And they had rides on the beach, and it was a big celebration for a long time. It was a time when a lot of people would say, "Oh, there's not a parking place in town," and all that kind of stuff. So some people left during that time. Not very many. Most of them, participated. All the churches were down there. They had a tent with they would be selling food and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a big thing, and it was a good thing for the community because they made some money, and they gave our museum, some money, and helped us with some things, and other organizations around the community benefited a lot from that. This past year was the last one that they were going to have.
Oh, okay.
And it just got to the point where you needed more volunteers. The other thing is the big ride companies didn't want to come here because it was a small town, and they'd, opt for someplace where they could make more money and that kind of stuff. So things were getting kind of difficult. So we had the final Mardi Gras parade and event this year.
Oh, that's kind of sad in a way.
It is. And I think one thing that might have been a factor was COVID, because of course, during the COVID years, the Mardi Gras was not able to be. And then when they started up again, it was a slow trip getting things back together. As John said, the ride companies didn't really want to come here, so on and so forth. So it's sad. And also it always ended on the 4th of July. So there was a big fireworks display. So this year we did have the parade, we did have the fireworks display, but it's unless somebody can figure out a way to sustain it, that was probably the last one.
Yeah. So it was Mardi Gras in the sense of a big gathering with parade and all that kind of thing, but not at the same time of year as Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
I think somebody in the community once they started said, this is kind of like the Mardi Gras. And the name stuck.
The name stuck.
Every community should have something like that. I think here in Portsmouth, we have a Halloween parade that attracts several thousand people every year, and it's become bigger and bigger. I think of that as Portsmouth's Mardi Gras.
Right.
Yeah, that's neat. One more event I just wanted to ask about, the Port Plunge. What's that?
That's New Year's Day, and this will be, I believe it's the third one. It was started by a relatively new group, but they're young and they're doing a lot in the community. Fairport Harbor Arts and Cultural Association.
Okay.
They had the first plunge 2 years ago. Last year it was even bigger, and this year they've combined with the YWCA over in Painesville. So I think it's going to be a huge event. $25 to register. The proceeds are going to Sub-Zero Mission. And it's going to be, it's supposed to be 22 degrees here on New Year's Day. So,
you have that nice park right by the lighthouse there. You can see the breakwater light out there from the park. That's not where the port plunge happens, is it?
Yeah, it'll be down at you remember where the lighthouse is, and that road goes down. It'll be in that area.
It will be, okay.
Yeah. EMS will be there. Jewel Beans Coffee is setting up a coffee station. Rigo's Pizza is going to have food. So it'll be a fun event.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going in. I'm holding blankets for somebody I know. That's as close as I get.
I'll go down
Yeah.
and take pictures.
Uh-huh. The blankets seem like an important part of the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you both a more general question. Okay. In fact, we're getting near the end here, and these final questions are for bonus points. Okay. So
Okay.
get your thinking caps on. And either of you can take this first. But what is special to you about the Fairport Harbor Lighthouse and Marine Museum?
To me, and again, I'm a relative newcomer, but the fact that the community was able to get together and actually save and start the museum and sustain it all these years, because we're totally volunteer driven. We get the occasional grant, we get donations, and our members are really good about it, but it's basically volunteer driven, operated, and funded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to me that's the basic thing that's important too, that it's always been run by volunteers. And like we talked about saving the lighthouse before, we saved it and we kept it going and we just keep on going with it. And it's such a connection because this town is connected to the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that worked on the boats. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention. This November,
Thank you.
we, on the 10th of November, which was the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Fitzgerald, we had a big program at our VFW hall. And we had
Yeah.
over 200 people that showed up there. It was standing room only. And it was a great tribute to those who were on the Fitzgerald. And our town is very unique because one of the people that spoke there was Bill Simcoe. He's in his 90s now, and he was on the very first crew of the Fitzgerald. And we also have a gentleman, Eddie Binden, who was one of the engineers that went down on the Fitz. So Fairport had somebody on the first crew of the Fitzgerald and the last crew of the Fitzgerald, and that's kind of a unique situation. I don't think many many towns could have anything like that. So,
Yeah.
um, keeping the history of our community and its connection to the Great Lakes, I think is a very important part of what we do.
Yeah. So as you were talking about the Edmund Fitzgerald, I was thinking, of course, it happened. The wreck of the Fitzgerald happened in eastern Lake Superior, right? So
Right.
not close to you, but it's such a big part of the lore of the Great Lakes, for sure. All of the Great
Well, there
Lakes.
are a lot of people from the state of Ohio
Mm-hmm.
that went down with the Fitz.
Okay. So
You
there's
look at the list of the crew members.
yeah. So there's very much a connection there.
Part of our program was Mr. Simcoe, of course, was the keynote speaker about his experiences, and he had photographs from the Fitz and so on. But Eddie Binden, the man who went down on the last voyage, we were able to make connections with two of his nieces, who were, of course, considerably older now, but they had both at different times sailed on the Fitz with their uncle as guests, and one of them was there August of '75, which, and he was planning to retire. That was going to be his last voyage. And he had told everyone. And his 25th wedding anniversary was going to be celebrated when he came back from his last trip on the Fitz.
Mm.
Went and bought a 2-carat diamond for his wife at a jeweler in, I believe, Michigan.
Duluth,
Minnesota. Thank you. And he didn't want to take it on the ship with him. So he just said, I don't want to take this on the ship with me. He gave it to a friend for safekeeping. So
Wow.
the rest of the story. But one of the nieces wrote, it was a eulogy, but it was just a sketch of him as a person, some of her childhood memories, and it was just really well done. And I don't think there were many dry eyes after she finished, but it was just a really special event.
Sounds
And
like
the
it.
community
Yeah.
was participating. So
we kind of live for those kind of things because that's, we're keeping the history alive.
Well, you both just touched on it, but my next question was going to be, what do you think the lighthouse and museum mean to the community? So you've touched on that in various ways, but anything either of you want to add along those lines? What does it mean to the local community there?
I think to most people, especially those who have been here for a long time, it's just a pivotal part of the community. It's a place to go. A lot of people have memories from, climbing the tower illicitly to actually volunteering inside the museum when they were young. A lot of connections.
Well, we live in Lake County, and this is kind of an iconic building here in Lake County, both the lighthouse and the breakwater and our lighthouse here. And so you will see that over and over again in different publications. And so everybody knows when they look at it, yeah, that's the Fairport Lighthouse. And so,
Yeah.
And we do, I mean, we have weddings here occasionally. We had a proposal at the top of the tower. So it's community friendly, we like to think.
Yeah. Lighthouses often, usually are icons of the community. And like you said, they're used in so many ways and as symbols of all kinds of positive
the coolest things was in 24 when we had the eclipse, because we were the center of that. It was like a perfect day. And we had bands playing down on the hill. We had hundreds of people that were all over here, and it worked just perfect. The sun was out, and then the eclipse came, and it got dark, and everybody cheered, and the lights in the harbor went on.
Yeah.
They were on photo cells and stuff like that. It was really neat.
That is really neat. Maybe a U.S. Lighthouse Society tour was there at that time, specifically to see a few lighthouses, but also the eclipse at that time, a small group, the U.S. Lighthouse Society. I'm not sure if they were at your lighthouse the day of the eclipse.
Yeah, I can remember
exactly
when they came
where
through.
they were.
I can't remember exactly when it was, though. I remember that happening.
Yeah.
We were so busy on that day.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. So I have one final question, okay, and this is for extra bonus points. And again, it's for both of you. What do you enjoy most about your work at the Fairport Harbor Lighthouse and Museum?
I enjoy meeting the visitors and learning the reasons why they're here. I mean, some people tour lighthouses regularly. Some want to visit all the ones on the Great Lakes. We literally get people from all over the world. So it's just very intriguing to know where they're from and why they chose to visit us.
I just pretty much like telling the stories that we have here to tell the history of what happened, and I think that's pretty much it.
I understand you have do some musical performing as well, and would you like to sing something for us?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All hands around the capstan, see the cable running clear. Heave her up, and with a will, boys, for Fairport Harbor we will steer. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea. Rolling home to Fairport Harbor, rolling home, O town, to thee. Through the passage at Point Pelee, past the light at Southeast Shoal, sailing east on old Lake Erie, Fairport Harbor is our goal. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea, rolling home to Fairport Harbor, rolling home, O town, to thee.
Wow. That sounds like the official anthem of Fairport Harbor.
Well, I don't know. That's what I sing when I'm sailing back to Fairport every time.
Yeah. Did you write that, or is that traditional?
No, that's an old, homeward bound shanty that people sing. The original words were "Rolling home to old New England." You should know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I should know that, but it's perfect. It should be adopted as the official.
Most of the sea shanties that you have, everybody adapts them to their boat or their house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's how that goes.
I think some of them started over in England or that, around there, and then were adapted over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Perfect. That's a great way to kind of wrap things up with this. So again, Marty O'Gara and John Ollila, thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity and hospitality when I visited there. Great talking with you again, both of you.
All right. Thanks for
you again.
Yeah. Thanks for thinking of us.
You can learn more at fairportharborlighthouse.org. The museum and lighthouse are closed for the winter, but will reopen Memorial Day weekend.
I want to thank Marty and John one more time for all their kindness when I visited Fairport Harbor in September. Fairport Harbor Lighthouse is a great place to visit, and I recommend it highly to anyone who might be visiting the Cleveland area or maybe doing a lighthouse trip along Lake Erie like I did.
A reminder to everyone to check out uslhs.org to find out more about all the things the U.S. Lighthouse Society offers, including the Passport Program, preservation grants, tours, the research catalog, and much more. And if you listen to this podcast using Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us.
Speaking of tours, I know you're going to be coming on the Society's Down East Maine tour this coming June. I've been planning that one with Tina Hans. I know it'll be a great tour. We're going to be seeing about 25 lighthouses in a week.
Yeah, I am so excited about this. I've been telling everyone who will listen about it. I think it'll be such a great experience. And for me, I've been afforded so many great opportunities as a volunteer with the USLHS through you, Jeremy, which I've appreciated. And this is kind of next level for me, but also lends itself to what I do in my professional career, which is events and visits. And I oversee tour guides, and a lot of it is giving guided tours. So I'm really excited to see that in action from a lighthouse standpoint.
Well, you have a lot to offer the Society, and you've shown that with the podcast and the new podcast you're doing. And I think I know you're going to enjoy the tour. I mean, we were talking before we started recording about how beautiful the Maine coast is and everything. So you know something about that, but I know you're going to have a good time, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's one other tour I want to mention. From July 26th to August 2nd, I'll be on board the schooner Mary Day, sailing out of Camden, Maine. I think you said you've been to Camden?
Yes, I was actually up in Camden for the first time this past August. My cousin, Claire, who actually designed the artwork for the Be the Light podcast, she was up there on sabbatical from work. So I went up to visit her. And when I got there, she had just gotten engaged. And we did a lot of exploring around Camden and Rockport, and it was so, so beautiful. Some really cool hikes. And of course, we went and saw all the lighthouses as well.
Yeah. It's a special place. And it's my favorite harbor. Camden Harbor is my favorite harbor, I think, anywhere. I don't know if you've been in the harbor, but if you're in a boat coming in or leaving the harbor, you see the Camden Hills kind of rising up behind the harbor. And there's all these beautiful sailboats and schooners there. And it's gorgeous. I really, really love it. So always look forward to going there. So again, I will be aboard the schooner Mary Day, sailing out of Camden, again, July 26th to August 2nd. It's a special lighthouse cruise on Penobscot Bay. I'll be on board to tell passengers about the lighthouses as we go near them. The exact route depends on the winds and the weather, but there are 23 lighthouses in the area. We'll probably see most of them. I did the same cruise last year. I loved it. There's something about being in a sail vessel, out in the ocean with the sun shining, the blue sky, the blue water, and no engine sound. It's so peaceful. And then you throw in some lighthouses, and it's even more special. To learn all about the Mary Day and to book the Lighthouse cruise in July or any of their cruises, go to schoonermaryday.com. So thank you for co-hosting again, Sarah, and please remind me when and where can people hear the first episode of your new podcast, Be the Light?
Thank you again for having me, Jeremy. I am so excited for Be the Light. So as we are chatting right now, it is not yet out, but it'll probably be going out tomorrow sometime. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, it is available to you on any podcast streaming service that you use. So please take a look at it. You can review it. Let us know what you think. We also have an Instagram account for this podcast as well, if you'd like to follow along on there at BeTheLight_pod. So very excited for that to come out. And also, if you know someone who's a light in your community, whether related to lighthouses or not at all, we would love to hear from you. We have a nomination form that you can find on that Instagram account in the bio, where you can nominate someone who is a light in your community, and hopefully we can have a great conversation with them and spread the word and spread the light that they are doing even further.
Sounds good. And if people have any trouble finding any of that, I'm easy to find. Jeremy at uslhs.org. You can email me and I can pass the word or question along to Sarah, and can do it that way. So I believe you also did a video version of the first episode, and we are going to post that on YouTube as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about that. One note on that is that we recorded that Zoom session a week before the holidays. So I'm wearing my beautiful Christmas sweater because I had just come from a holiday party at work. I'm excited to have that version of it out as well. Just any place people can find this. I think it's a great conversation about empathy, community building, and just lighting the way for others. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
Yeah, well, they will. I know they will. I know I did. And Christmas sweaters are always appropriate anyway. So just it brightens the mood at any time. And I also want to mention that we're going to start doing some live streaming video versions of this podcast on YouTube Live. The tentative date, I would say it's more than tentative, pretty definite. For the first episode is January 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So people should watch for more announcements about that. And Sarah, I know you're going to be involved with that as well. I hope you'll be on board as a co-host for some of those live episodes as well. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about that. I'm just excited that it seems like more and more opportunities to learn about lighthouses and to be involved are getting out there through all the great work that you're doing, Jeremy. So I'm very excited to continue to be a part of it all.
Well, thank you for being part of it. And I'll warn you, though, the more you get into it, the more it pulls you in. I know from experience. It's like, and there's no escape after a while, but that's okay. I have no complaints. No complaints whatsoever. It's been great. We will be back next week with the Lighthearted Light episode, and we'll have a brand new episode in 2 weeks. For now, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thank you so much for listening, and
keep a good light.